Okay, I have one or two questions last couple of days. Um, one, over in the Clifton area, if somebody's buying a a house with a lot of property on it, they're more than likely not going to be able to subdivide the property. They have minimum property requirements because of the Occoquan watershed. So before they write a contract thinking they can do that, they need to check with the county. Okay. And also with the home inspection addendum, um, the purchaser has the right to void the contract without giving an explanation. So, uh, if they just decide they don't want the house, all they do is just notice to void the contract and a release agreement also, and everybody moves forward. So, just a couple housekeeping type things. All right. Now, if there's no other questions, I want to take a look at the new home construction contract. We're not going to go too deeply into this because, quite frankly, you will probably have very little times that you will ever really use this. Because if you go to a new homes project, they have their own contract. So let's take a look at the form. It's K1208. Okay. It was in that massive package of information they sent you. If you have that, it's on page 31 of that packet of new forms. Everybody find it? Okay. I think probably the most important part of this form is on page 1 of it, and it's in a big box in capital letters. Seek legal advice before executing this document. And I recommend that if this form is going to be used, that the purchaser have this form reviewed by their attorney, because it's not something that most real estate agents will deal with in an everyday activity. And it is a little different than a lot different than our residential contract. So first I want to go to the definitions paragraph so that we address a few of the differences in this contract and in your residential. On page 42 of the package, but it's page 12 of 15 of this contract. The first difference is paragraph G, for specified financing, see price and financing paragraph. It's a little different when we take a look at the first page, because financing is going to be a little different. So we'll take a look at that. Also, J, when it comes to notices, okay, remember it's a unilateral communication from one party to another, which simply means that the other party doesn't have to acknowledge it or respond to it. It's just something sent by the party that has to do it. So all notices required under this contract will be in writing and will be effective as of delivery. For the purposes of computing time periods, the first day will be the day following delivery. And delivery is capitalized, has to go where it calls for in the contract. So if you send it today, the first day is tomorrow, okay? And the time period will end at 9 p.m. on the day specified. Written acknowledgement of the receipt is a courtesy but not a requirement, because it is not an addendum. It is a notice, one-way communication. Anybody have any questions about the difference between a notice and an addendum, and when a notice is used versus an addendum or an amendment? Okay, so anytime the contract calls for a notice, send a notice, not an addendum. Project, L. Project means property and all improvements, including any changes of additional work request is provided herein. So it'll be the land and the structure being built on it. Later, everybody might want to make some changes to the plans, and that is done by written agreement. Substantially complete or substantial completion means the certificate of occupancy has been issued. Now, the certificate of occupancy comes from the county inspectors. It doesn't mean the house is complete. It means that the house is complete enough that people could occupy. There might still be seeding to do, grass or driveways or stuff like that. And the project is fit for habitation and is functional for ordinary dwelling use. All appliances and fixtures installed, including all finishes necessary to occupy the property without material inconvenience. So the county's saying you've met all the requirements. Electric's fine, the plumbing's fine, you know, drywall's fine, and the appliances are in, you can occupy. So completion of occupancy. So anytime any work is done on a property, I always advise agents to make sure that it's subject to the occupancy permit. Next page, N, notice of substantial completion means written notification from seller to buyer that the project is substantially complete. That means it got the occupancy permit, right? Mechanics lien agent. You usually don't deal with a mechanics lien much in a residential existing contract. Where you might get involved with that is when you come up with a lot of things that have to be done to a property, okay? You have a home inspection, and there's about $25,000 worth of work, and it requires contractors to complete it. That's when you have to make sure that all mechanics liens are waived. When it's a new build, a mechanics lien agent is appointed, and in this instance, the contract calls for it to be the title company. Then that mechanics lien agent collects all notices from subcontractors and service material providers associated with the project. They actually have a list of anybody who's done the work. They have to actually sign off that they have been paid and that they waive the right to put a lien against the property. And that should be at the settlement. So you want to make sure all the mechanics liens have been satisfied, because as we saw previously, it's 90 days from the last day of the month that the work was completed. And that runs with the land. It does not run with the person that caused the debt. Project completion date shall be 15 business days from delivery of notice of substantial completion, or as otherwise mutually agreed, okay? And these are all deliveries of notices and not addendums, okay? So those are the definitions that'll be a little different than what you are familiar with. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the nuances to a home construction contract. Now, this form would not be used with a mass builder. This is where the lot might be already owned by the builder, and they say, we will build to suit, okay? We see a lot of that in Vienna area, where people buy the older homes, the builders buy the older homes and say, we'll build to suit, okay? Well, now they own the lot, and then you guys are going to agree to the construction of the dwelling unit. So that's when this type of a contract would be used, not with big new home builders. They have their own contracts, okay? So on the first thing that would be different is the seller. The seller is the owner of property and who is a licensed Virginia contractor, the license number, class, classification, specialty, and business. You need to make sure they are licensed, bonded, Class A contractors, probably by the state of Virginia, and any local permits that are required. Okay? The next paragraph is buyer and seller hereby confirm. That is the same as the residential contract, and we took a look at that paragraph last Thursday. Paragraph 1, real property. Okay. Little different because buyer agrees to buy and seller agrees to sell the land and all improvements to be constructed. Okay. So this is all. So this is a little different because you're used to selling a house that's already built. Now they're buying the land and any improvements to be constructed. Down in Louisa, where my home is, down in Mineral, there's a project that every house in that project, the developer owns the land. They have a model they will build you, but everybody buys the land from the builder, and the builder constructs whatever they want to be built. Okay. Improvements, options, and or equipment included. Okay. And it's all considered to be the improvements. The seller agrees to construct and or install all improvements in compliance with the drawings, specs, and plans created by the seller. So in that example in Louisa, they already have plans where they would build this house for you, or you can sit down with them and develop their own. Okay. A seller shall, including providing and installing all standard features and options listed on a separate addendum. And there would be a separate addendum listing the upgraded cabinets, upgraded carpet, that type of stuff. Seller shall include an active radon remediation system as part of the plans. I sort of like that clause because, hey, they're building it from ground up. Best time to put this remediation system in, if it's going to be necessary, is when they're building. And anytime there's going to be any change or additional request for work, there will be a separate addendum you will have to exercise for that. Any questions about paragraph 2? All right, well, paragraph 3 is a little different than what you're used to also. Lot price, if they're buying the lot from the builder, or they may be buying this and going to the bank. And this paragraph is more for the bank, in that you need to get a construction loan, and they will base the construction loan on the estimated value of the property when it's built, which will then be changed, hopefully rolled over into a permanent loan. So you really need to arrange for the construction loan to be rolled over, in my opinion, to a permanent loan with a bank that will make these type of loans. Check with your lenders. Most lenders probably won't do it. You'll probably be dealing directly with a bank on these. Okay. The base price and the options, sort of like going into a new home builder. You start out with a base price, you add the other. You just don't have the land part when you're dealing with them, because they're not going to let you build your own house. They're going to let you build their model, and you can make some changes. And then something else you might not be used to, the next page, first deposit, this date. Okay. So the date you're writing the contract, they will give you a check for X amount of dollars. And it generally calls for additional deposits as the project goes along, to make sure that the builder's not stuck with a house that's, and they're carrying all the cost. So you will have the due by dates there and your total deposit, added to the loan amount and down payment. A little different than what you're used to in your residential contract. Okay. Now, the first deed of trust, you'll see they have the word construction, see addendum attached. There would be a separate construction addendum financing. And if you're building a house, that's probably what's going to be. Now, if it's a house built by a builder, they've already got VA or USDA approval, you may be able to get the VA loan based on the new home being constructed, because their base models have already been approved by VA and USDA. But more than likely, you are going to be dealing with a construction loan. Be a separate addendum altogether. Okay. The deposit is pretty much what we see in our normal contract. Okay. Buyer's deposit shall be held by escrow agent. I like the fact that it's held by escrow agent. The builder may say, no, I'm going to hold the deposits. The danger in a builder holding a deposit, it will go into their general fund. It will not go into an escrow account. So this form was prepared by NVAR's staff and attorneys. So it calls for an escrow. If you're dealing with a builder who's using their own contract, if it says it goes in their general fund, they could use that to buy a pickup truck later. And if they declare bankruptcy, that money is gone. So if I'm going to be putting up deposits, I want it to go into an escrow account. Okay. The buyer has delivered the first deposit or will deliver the first deposit to the escrow agent. Yeah. If a check was made out to anybody other than the escrow agent, then the check has not been delivered. We will discuss that in Thursday's session when we go to the basics. So if it's first deposit is made out to whomever and it's already delivered there, it would almost have to be where this contract is being written and signed at the title company that's going to hold the escrow, if that's who it's going to be, or if it's going to be a real estate company, which in this instance probably would not happen, then unless it's physically been delivered, you need to check the box, they will deliver. Okay. And all additional deposits shall be delivered to the escrow agent as outlined in the price of specified financing paragraphs. And you know that if it's made out to Fairfax Realty, okay, whichever office you're in, if it's Fairfax Realty of Tyson's, it's made out to Fairfax Realty of Tyson's. That check has to be in the bank within 5 business banking days, okay? So it can't be held unless all parties agree to otherwise in the contract. If the escrow agent is anybody other than a real estate licensee, then it has to go into the accounts within whatever their time frame is. I checked with Louisa here, and they have no real time frame spelled out in the for title companies. But it's immediate as far as they're concerned. As soon as they receive it, it goes in. Any questions?
Yes, Larry, this is Ahmed.
Yes.
Can the seller, the construction company in this case, demand 5%? I had a situation where they wanted the earned money deposit to be the full 5% of the loan.
They can certainly do whatever they want. It's called the golden rule. Man has a gold mix rule. So if you want their house, then you do what they want. It's also usually a function of the market. If people are lined up to buy the product, then they can ask whatever they want. If it's a slow market and they don't have any houses under contract, then they're probably more negotiable. But yeah, they can demand whatever they want. Okay. The danger is make sure it goes into an escrow account and not the builder's general fund. You know, they might say general fund so we can build this property. And if that's the case, that money's really endangered and could be lost.
So can you change that, or if he tells me that's our rules, what can I do at that situation?
Well, you can always negotiate that it be put in an escrow account, but some of these builders are going to say no. You know, we need the money to start construction. So at that point, have a heart-to-heart discussion with your client and make sure they understand that, hey, if this company should go bankrupt, your money's gone. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's why they said they really needed to get legal advice when using this form.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, when it comes to utilities, water, sewage, heating, all that's going to have to be installed. and it should be depicted on the plans, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's where they're going to be located. So the builder's not guaranteeing where the electric company might put that electric transformer box in the yard, or where the storm sewer is going to go, etc. And most people don't want to buy a house that have all those. I remember the house I had in Centerville, new home that I bought a year after it was built. I had the electric transformer in the front yard, and I had the other corner. I had the box for the cable, and in the backyard there was storm sewer, so there was an easement. They could come in and tear that up at any time they wanted. Didn't bother me. When I resold, I sold in a good market where people were fighting over it, so they ignored it too. But those are usually not the most desirable things to have in your yard. One thing the seller does agree to here is the seller does agree that they will meet the companies out there and show the preferred location, but that doesn't mean that's what it's going to be. Okay. The construction paragraph 6. Within 5 business days following the date of ratification, seller shall seek all appropriate permits and approvals for the construction of the improvements to complete the project. That doesn't happen in a day. This could take some time, okay? When you make sure that your person understands when you're starting from scratch, it's not like going out to buy at a construction site at a new homes project where they're building 40 properties and everything's already approved. They don't have to resubmit the plans. They'd have to submit changes to plans, but if it was material changes, but there they can break ground pretty quickly. With this, they haven't even applied for the permits yet. So this process takes some time, okay? Seller shall name settlement agent, title insurance underwriter as a mechanics lien agent on all permit applications, because the county needs to know who to go to make sure all this stuff is done. And any permits have to be posted at the site. So the mechanics lien party of the title company will be handling all the releases. This is one time that you really have to recommend that your buyers take out the best title insurance policy they can, including mechanics lien. And most of the title companies will be offering the mechanics lien insurance on top of it. It's not that much more, one-time fee, in my opinion, well worth having. Okay. Now, we looked at some definitions, but construction will begin within X number of days after settlement. And, that's also contingent upon getting the permits, right? Because can't start without them. And seller will deliver notice of substantial completion or on or about. So substantial completion, we have the certificate of occupancy, basically. The buyer is aware that delays caused by events beyond the control of the seller, work stoppages, municipal approvals, all that type of stuff. You can read it. And anything unanticipated and unforeseen are not included in the calculation of time estimates. Can anybody think of anything that would be an example of that? How about COVID-19? Okay. So if the county's not working, or the inspectors aren't working, or can't get enough people to build, you're gonna have other time delays. The good news is, if it's not completed within 24 months, substantially, certificate of occupancy, then this contract may be voidable at the sole option of the buyer. So another thing to understand, these things are going to take a long time. What is interest rates today? Little over 3%. How much will they be in 2 years? Don't know. That's why you want to deal with a bank to see if they will commit to a permanent loan when it comes out of construction loan. Okay. Settlement. pretty much going to be with terms of the contract. They will give you a notice that the substantial completion. If you bought from a builder, you know they usually give you a 2 or 3 day notice that be there. This you have the opportunity to negotiate. Occupancy, another paragraph that you wouldn't see in our regular contract, may occur only after buyers receive seller's notice of substantial completion. Delivery of the property at settlement and completion of the project are not severable, and seller's obligation to perform requires that the project be completed and delivered to the buyer under the terms of this contract. So you might have settlement where there's still more work to be done, what you would call a punch list, but everybody's acknowledging and agreeing to that. Paragraph 11, I'm skipping the other ones because they're pretty much the same, except for settlement. Just to drive home a point, if you look at settlement on page 4 of 15, either party may retain their own legal counsel. There's always only one settlement agent. Even in a split settlement, there's only one title company, all right, one settlement agent. But everyone has the right to have their attorneys. A settlement agent can't give either party legal advice. They're only there to process the paperwork, okay? However, both parties can also have an attorney to be their legal counsel that can give them advice. So since the buyer has the right to select the title company, the seller, who in this instance is the builder, will probably have their own legal counsel anyway. Okay. Model home. Any model home displayed? Does somebody have a question?
Yeah, sorry, this is Ahmed. The settlement agent will be the one the buyer chose, or when it's a split settlement?
Well, the buyer by law has the right to choose the settlement agent in the state of Virginia. How does the builder at the builder projects get you to use their people?
They give you some incentives, like $10,000.
So they give you a little incentive. If you use our title company and our lender, we'll finish your basement for free or something or another. Okay, and you can do that, but they can't say you have to use their title company. That's against the law. So they usually give you an incentive. Okay, in a regular residential contract, your seller can't say must use our title company, but if people put the title company in the contract that you want, they still have 10 days afterwards to change their mind in our residential contract. So the way to sort of handle that and control it, that they don't change, if there were going to be closing costs paid, say, your seller was giving the buyer 2% in closing cost, then I could add a clause as the seller that says, if any clause in this contract changes, any term changes, then you forfeit the closing cost. So if they come back and try to change attorneys later, you can't say they can't, but you can say you understand that that's a term change, so you lose your closing cost. So that's one way to control that. I'm not recommending you do it, but it's the same way the builders do it. You can, as a seller, do it in a residential contract. So this builder may already have somebody they want you to use. They may offer some incentives. It's going to be the call and judgment call of your purchaser at that point.
Mr. Neely, if you don't mind, you saying here in the new construction contract, we have to ask the client to seek legal advice to hire an attorney for it, or we have to orient him on this?
Well, they're warned for that in the first, right at the top of the page in the contract, that they should seek legal advice before executing this document, because this is so different and it's so far out of the realm of what real estate agents would do in a normal transaction. Think about it. You go to a new homes project. I don't want to pick a builder. I don't, Toll Brothers. Okay. Can the people change the contract? Well, they could ask, but how many people even get that thing reviewed? Okay. But who fills it out? Well, the new home contractor agent. Okay. So who do you think that contract favors?
Builder.
The builder.
The builder, absolutely. So if something is being done where it favors one party over the other, shouldn't that party maybe stop and get it reviewed by an attorney? I think so. And that's all they're saying here. Because how many of you, when you go to a new homes project, sit there and read through those 30 or 40 pages of documents and explain it to the purchaser? I don't. I mean, I will review it later and say, I'd advise you to have this checked out, but it usually works out, right?
Mhm.
Well, under paragraph 11, the one thing that normally doesn't work out at a new homes project is it pretty much says, what you see might not be what we build.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, come on, that's at the new homes project too, right? You look at this model home, you fall in love with it, and right in the small print it says, oh, the kitchen was on the right, and that's where you like it. Unfortunately, the location of the lot and what we did, we built the kitchen on the left, and you say, well, I don't want it. Too bad. It says what you see might not be what you get. Okay? So that's why they need to make sure they understand and that we didn't give them illegal advice. I mean, you could fill out the blanks. Okay. The state of law in Virginia allows you to fill out all these blanks, but at the same time, I'm thinking I'm going to make sure I recommend they have it reviewed. How many people ever get their contract reviewed by an attorney, even though all our contracts say we're not practicing law, we say you should seek legal advice? Very few people, right?
1%, 2%.
One or two. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm the other way around. I read every word before I sign anything. And if I don't understand it, I get a clarification, and it's always contingent upon review of an attorney. So I'm a little different than most people. Just like the sign-in sheet, when you come over to the NVAR to take continuing ed or a course with me, how many people do you think ever read the top of the form? There's a disclaimer on the top of the form. How many people do you think ever read it? And they're real estate agents.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody read it. And do you know what it says? It says, everybody agrees to give Larry Anderson $5 to get their certificate at the end of the class by signing on below you agree. Okay. Well, that's not what it says, but it says we can't discuss antitrust and that type of stuff. But people, even real estate agents, don't read. They just sign. There's a place to sign. There's 2 sheets out there. They don't have a DC license. They don't even bother to read on the top of the form. It says DC license. So they sign both of them. I mean, sign everywhere. Make sure you get credit. So always make sure they have the right to have these things reviewed by an attorney and that we're not practicing law. Okay. Now, the paragraph 12, changes an additional work request. Okay. So the seller reserves the right to make changes to the project at the seller's cost and expense. They need to give advance written notice to the buyer if such changes are necessary as a result of unforeseen site conditions or availability of materials specified. But if they have to substitute design finishes or materials or anything, it should be substantially similar in quality, duration, and warranty and appearance. But it might not be what you thought you were getting. So the one caveat there, if it was because they failed to order it in a timely fashion and it's no longer available, that might give you an out. But other than that, what they're saying in 12, if we have to make changes, sorry, but that's the way it is. And also the location of your driveways, patios, etc. You can read that. It may not be where you thought it was going to be. but it won't be a shared driveway. Now, when it comes to insulation, it talks about how thick it will be. They should be able to give you some, builders should be able to give you some guidance. Of course, the better the insulation, the more it's going to cost. Okay. Next page here, express warranty. So if it says seller warrants as of occupancy, the improvement shall be free from structural defects so as to pass without objection in the trade. If I turned to you and said, what does that mean? What does pass without objection in the trade mean? I'm not sure how many of us would be comfortable explaining that. That's something that an attorney would explain, but that just means uniform quality and quantity, fair to average quality within the description of what's acceptable in the industry. Okay. So, or fit for ordinary purposes for which the goods are used. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. That's like with the walkthrough items on a residential sale contract. It says it has to be completed by a licensed contractor. I get a licensed contractor to do it, but you come in with your buyer, and your buyer says, I don't like the way they did that. I'm not buying this house. Sorry. It was done by a licensed contractor. Did not say you had to like how it was done. It passed without objection in the trade. Okay. It met maybe the minimum requirement in the trade, but it met whatever was like. Okay. So that's why they may want to, have this thing reviewed for terms like that. Okay. Third-party homeowner warranty. They have to give you a 10-year HAL warranty on a property, and they should give you a copy of that prior. Paragraph 15, risk of loss. The risk of damage stays with the seller until settlement date. In the event of substantial loss or damage before settlement date, your buyer has the option of terminating the contract or affirming the contract, in which event the seller shall assign the buyer all seller's rights under the policy of insurance. The reason being, in the state of Virginia, once a buyer writes a contract on a property, they have equitable title rights. They should have their own insurance. We don't, because we always have risk of loss goes with the seller till settlement. That's why we have that clause. Real quickly here in paragraph 16, the last paragraph on this page. Seller will convey property by general warranty deed with English covenants of title. I can tell you almost every builder will pull that out of the contract. They are not going to give a general warranty deed. Whenever you buy a new home, you get a special warranty deed. So when this builder wants to cross that out, saying, I'm not guaranteeing this against all time, I'm only guaranteeing that I didn't do anything to encumber the property while I owned it. Would you feel comfortable explaining that to your buyer? If not, another reason they need an attorney to review their contract. Okay? Because if the attorney sees that crossed out of the contract, they're going to make sure they understand what special warranty deed means. Okay? And at settlement, though, they will be given a mechanic's lien affidavit acceptable to the buyer's title insurance. So if you've never seen one of those, each one of the people that delivered any products or did any work literally have to sign that they're releasing their right to any liens against the property. Okay. And that's important to have. Most of the rest of these paragraphs are the same until we get to 25, and that's access to the property. After settlement and prior to project completion date. So you will have a settlement on the construction loan so that the builder can get their money up front, and then the construction loan usually are draws after they get to a certain point, and the construction loan controls that. That will not be in your under your control. That is something that they've agreed to. But your buyer cannot just go into the property anytime they want. Only under the inspection paragraph 26, and that if you go in there without the seller's permission, and somebody gets hurt or you fall and get hurt because you fall down a hole that wasn't covered or whatever, they're not going to be responsible. So inspections, there will be times where your purchaser has the right to go out. This specifies the notice that has to be delivered within 2 days. You can read that part. You will probably have the following benchmarks on the next page. After foundation cure and waterproofing, but prior to backfilling. So you'll go out and you actually see the foundation of your home, make sure that it's been parged and, you know, all that type of stuff. The next one would be after rough ends for electric and plumbing, just in case they don't like where the stuff is located before they put drywall up. That's the time that you would make the changes. And then prior to substantial completion, you would go out and do a walkthrough, and that's where you start looking for nail pops and all the final stuff, okay? So I'm not going to sit here and read paragraph B and C to you about the final inspections. You can read through those. The final walkthrough inspection, next page, buyer and buyer's rep will have the right to make walkthrough inspections within 2 days prior to completion, project completion date. That's when you walk through, and you normally do these walkthroughs, even though you have the right to do a final. You usually do the walkthrough with the builder or the builder's representative, and they come up with all the things that need to be taken care of after settlement. Okay. Paragraph 29 is built into this paragraph because Megan's Law disclosure is, you know, there would not be these other disclosures we use that contain Megan's Law. And broker's fee, paragraph 31. If this property was listed with another agent, then that covers how the fees be split. Okay, but if you take a look at paragraph 40, that's where there was not listed. So the builder was selling this property themselves. Then paragraph 40 is where you make sure your commission is covered, that it's going to be paid by the seller on behalf of your buyer client. Okay, but if it's listed, you would not use paragraph 40. Now back to paragraph 34, contracts subordinate to the construction loan. So subordination simply means whatever is recorded at the courthouse gets paid first. But if everybody agrees to subordination, then then this one drops down and the other one goes in. So the contract would be, if the contract is registered, recorded at the courthouse, and then there's financing taken out, well, what they're saying is the financing is going to go above you. So if I go bankrupt, the lender first, if anything's left over, you. So subordinate, anytime you see the term subordinate, means you drop down in position in recording at the courthouse. Okay. And last one, page number 48, the recovery fund. The buyer is hereby notified of the existence of the Virginia Contractor Transaction Recovery Fund. That is not because you don't like the way they built the house, okay? It's not for a breach of the contract, only for improper actions. So they took your money and ran off with it and didn't build a house. Well, all these licensed contractors put money in a fund. So up to $20,000 would be covered for improper actions of the builder. Not that they didn't build the house the way you wanted. It's just like the fund that we have in Richmond as agents. We have fund in Richmond. If you do something wrong and they get a judgment against you, then they have the right to go against the fund to get to recover. For us, it's 50,000, but builders, it's only 20, which seems like builders should be higher, but it's not. And that's basically that the differences in the contract. Any questions? if you're going to use this, talk to your managers, okay, to help you through it.
Regarding title insurance, does it, if you get a title insurance, would it matter if it's a general warranty deed or a special warranty deed? Aren't you covered anyway?
Well, but see, a lot of people don't get the best title insurance policy. They only get you know, the cheapest one they can get. And so you're going to have to run that one by your title company. That's why it costs for in our sales contract that they quote you the price on the best policy, but you have the right to take lesser policy. So special warranty, they would cover. So what does the title insurance cover? The title insurance, most title insurance policies cover if we messed up in our title search. But what if something wasn't to the point where they could find it? Like some relative shows up that was in the war and everybody thought they were dead and they'd been living in some cave in the woods, not knowing the war was over for the last 30 years. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it could happen. And all of a sudden they show up. Well, that's not something would be under, you know, every title insurance policy unless you take out the best. So always talk to your title insurance company, get advice, and never advise people not to take policy out. I've heard agents say at the settlement table, "Ah, you don't need this. They had one before." No, you should have your own policy. Okay.
Thank you.
What is
Any-
the warranty deed? Warranty deed for warranty?
General warranty deed guarantees the property against all time. The time I owned it and all previous owners. Now they usually go back through title, right? But you know, so general warranty, if I've given you guarantee that there's been no title problems all along, and even before I owned it, if I have you know, good title insurance, it will cover the defense of the title if I'm being sued and any equity I have in the property. Okay, so with this new build, all right, if I'm giving you all these deposits up front and any change deposits, I probably want protection during the building process. So when you have that settlement on the land, et cetera, or the build, talk to your title company and you know, that's why they should be selecting the title company or have their own attorney to give them that advice. Okay. Okay, a couple of things. Thursday we'll be doing the basics, the sales contract. We only got through, I think, 2 paragraphs last week. We'll pick up and do it there. This Sunday, I'm headed back to Daytona Beach, so we will have adjustments in when we do these sessions. I think we're going to be doing them Monday and Wednesday while I'm there. And I'll be frank, Tuesday and Thursday is the day I play golf at the country club. So we'll make an adjustment to when we do these, but when we put it out, you will know the date and times that we do them. Okay. So Thursday session is going to be the basic contract stuff again. All right. So Ask Larry's or the first session of the week. And then anything you want to talk about, and I'll throw some stuff in. This Thursday will be back to the basics. Okay. Any other questions about anything before we call today?
Larry, I had a question.
Okay.
On the residential contract, number 10, that paragraph 10, property maintenance and condition, except as otherwise. What should I tick mark? Date of offer, home inspection, or other? What is the
Well,
we should?
it depends on your
Is the
client.
occupied house? If it is the occupied house,
it depends on your client and the situation. If you pick date of offer, that means that whatever condition it is on the day you write the contract is the way it's going to be. So you're at the mercy of the seller's honesty. The best one, in my opinion, is home inspection, because then we know what condition the property's in as of a certain date. Other, I don't want you ever using unless it's going to be a tear down, because other, I've had agents put settlement date and that means whatever condition it's on that day. So why even do a walkthrough? And I will be going into that in great detail, hopefully Thursday's session if we make it that far. Okay. Okay. But if it's a multi-contract presentation and your buyer chooses a home inspection and there's 3 other offers, how many of those are going to be date of offer? Probably the other one. So which one's going to be the first one ruled out?
Okay.
Probably yours. So it's also a function of the market. Okay. And we'll spend a lot of time on that paragraph when I get to it.
Okay.